Eckert. I'm a senior safety specialist out of PGE, so Portland General Electric. I'm from North Plains, Oregon. My parents moved here 2 weeks before I was born. They're from New York, and they went in the small town, or what used to be a small town of North Plains. And so I went to North Plains Elementary, I went to Evergreen Middle School, and then ultimately graduated from Glencoe High School. I became a senior safety specialist out of luck. There has been many career choices that I thought I was going to go into. And right now, this is my current one. There's so much that I'm hoping to share with you guys, but I am all about interaction. So if you want to drop questions in the chat, I'll try to answer them live. If you want to raise your hand or just interrupt and ask the question, I don't get offended by any of that. So the more, the merrier, or if you're fine just sitting there listening, that's fine too. My biggest thing, LinkedIn. If you want to add me on LinkedIn and become a connection, I highly encourage that. If you don't have a LinkedIn, I would encourage you to start making one. That is a great effort to have a professional public profile. Actually, I just got a message 2 minutes ago from someone I don't know who's seen my profile and is offered to meet with me because they want me to have an interview with their company. So it's a great tool of getting those connections. So I would really encourage that. And then obviously, because we haven't met in person, don't feel that we need to, we can come together. So what is a safety specialist? It can be multiple things. So for my job, I sit in two different worlds. I sit in the corporate safety side, and I also am in the field. And so in the field is with the people that do the frontline work. So during COVID, we heard a lot about essential workers, right? Essential workers were the people that didn't have the option to work from home. They didn't have the option to stop working. They are needed to make our society function. And being a PGE, being a critical infrastructure, we make create and distribute electricity both to customers that are businesses as well as residential. And so my job is to in any safety matter that is relevant to their job. So we have fish technicians, so people who are in the water, in a river, working with fish.
She'll be back, guys. Don't worry. Hold tight.
Hold tight. Learn about the fish technician.
Oh, you're muted.
So we have all different areas at PGE that I support. And so my job is, if there's any safety concern, we'll go ahead and address that concern to the best we can. And so there's different ways that we can do that. Some of it is just they go, Marlo, I don't know what to do here. This feels very unsafe. I'll go out as a safety specialist and we'll have a meeting. I'll be like, show me what you're concerned about. And I'll have my eyes right there. And whether it's a piece of equipment is broken, they feel that they're putting themselves in a dangerous position while they're loading equipment. If something's broken, we deal with members of the public, MOPs, which I'll probably naturally say. There's a lot of security risks out there. If people are upset that their electricity was turned off or wasn't restored in time, those interactions can be very dangerous for our employees. And so I'm there to help provide guidance on how to de-escalate a situation, some of the tools they have for being a PG employee, as well as what to do if things escalate out of control. And so that's some of the function. The other function is make sure we're following the law. And so there's all regulations that we have to follow, whether it's from OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or from the state, or from your city, or any other guidelines that may impact the work you're doing. And so, for example, the most recent ones that have come up from OSHA, I should say this. OSHA, there's federal OSHA, and because we live in the state of Oregon, there's Oregon OSHA. And so federal OSHA is for all the states in the country. And then if your state has a particular region that they designate their own OSHA, you have to follow two different OSHAs. And so your state OSHA oversees federal. So it's your job to know where the lines are. And if you are moving to different states or you have work in different states, like we do work in Washington. And so we need to know the difference for what we're allowed to do in Oregon and what we're allowed to do in Washington. And so my job is to help our employees be successful. And if there's different safety measures, we go ahead and help them to make sure they're successful, they can complete their job on time and safe as possible, but also giving them tools if things do go wrong, what they can do to help mitigate them. With that, my job with my current job got really tricky in the last 3 years because we had COVID and it came on our team's responsibility to respond to that. Because we weren't able to send over, I think it's like, 1,500 employees were not able to work from home. And so how do we support those thousands of employees and their families to make sure that they're safe at work, not only from their very dangerous job to begin with, but COVID and something we didn't know back at the time, as well as making sure that they're protecting themselves outside of work and their families. And so that came my responsibility. And that was a huge, huge growth opportunity for myself. It was the first time in my career where no one was the expert. So I got to become the expert, where usually someone's always teaching you in these roles. They'll tell you like, in past history, this is what we've done. In 2010, this was the legislation. All this was brand new. So it was a great opportunity for me to, jump on board and be the expert in teaching those who have, 30 years of experience in the safety field, something new, because I was able to take that initiative. Two other things that have changed my job is we have a heat illness OSHA rule in Oregon, as well as a wildfire smoke rule. And when the air quality gets to a certain level, there's different safety measures we have to put in place. If there's a certain temperature that we hit, there's certain rules that we have to follow. There's certain things that we have to allow, including breaks. And so when you get to, if it's 105 degrees out in Oregon, you have to take a 40-minute break for your work every hour. So how does a crew that has to do a 2-hour job, who must take a 40-hour break by law, how do they get their job done that we just made it, 6 hours, because we have to follow that rule? So it's my job to help those employees work within those rules efficiently. So that could be, we add an extra person to the crew and you take your 40-minute break one by one and you rotate, and you're allowed to do that. We provide air conditioning in our vehicles, and then we also have pull-out tents, so that way you can stay in the shade, so you follow that rule. Water. Some of this stuff is things we've already done, but something when you're saying you have to take a 40-minute break out of every hour of work, so you're only going to do 20 minutes of work, man, people look at you wondering, what are we supposed to do? How are we going to accomplish something? And so that's my job. And that it's not just my job, there's a team of us, but that's a role I play here. And so that's kind of fun in the safety world, is you're able to help enable folks be successful in their work while you're making sure they're following the law. And then you're able to provide solutions. And that's my biggest thing, is I want to get things done. I hate waiting around, and being in safety, it is immediate. You cannot sit on a safety issue for months or years. It has to be corrected that week or that day. And if you don't have a correction, there has to be some sort of plan. And so that's what I love about my job the most, is that it's go, 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 go. You can't just sit down and say, oh, it's acceptable that you work in unsafe manners for the next 2 months. Just wait. And so I'm really thankful that my personality matches with that lifestyle. Here in safety of, we got to fix it now. So that's some of the stuff of being a safety specialist. There's other things with compliance. We're a self-insured company. And so we're required to do audits on ourselves. We have over 25 locations in Oregon, and then we have one in Washington as well. And if you're doing an audit, it's a very intense process. Oh, I see there's a question. Yes, there is requirements for cold weather, making sure that our folks are well prepared for any ice, protected from the elements, have the proper personal protective equipment, so PPE, and we enable ourselves to ensure that they're prepared, but there's no breaks in the sense of what we see with heat illness in that capacity yet. But Usually when you see one thing happen in one area, the opposite will happen for a different season. So we're likely will see some sort of change, I think, in the future, especially if you're in, like Montana, Minnesota, et cetera. There could be different rules for them that experience more colder climates. As I was saying with the Division Ones, there's so many things that you can audit. And that the audit is more in the sense of if we do a walk around of a facility or site, we're looking for any hazards that are out there. This could be just mislabeling of equipment, mislabeling or no labeling on chemicals stored in the wrong bins, chemicals not stored at all, a chain not being there, a broken curb. It can be anything from something as small as that broken curb to we don't have a emergency exit. We don't have eye wash stations next to the chemicals we work with. And so those Division I audits is a great way to self-check ourselves and correct any issues that we have ahead of time.
She'll be right back. Gotta love technology.
But also there's different, I don't know why the internet's dropping. I'm sorry, folks, but we'll just keep making it work. But also there is the possibility that there can be a surprise inspection on your site. That could be because a member of public has saw something that they think is unsafe. It can be an anonymous complaint that's come from an employee. There's definitely different ways that they could, particularly OSHA could come on site, and they're allowed to do that with little notice. And so being able to do those Division I inspections and helping those that are the frontline workers and the managements over those plants and work sites is going to make us more efficient. It's going to avoid penalties, and most important, it's going to keep people safe in the long run. So those are all different elements that could happen on kind of the corporate side of the house. Now, when you look at being a field safety specialist, which is my other half of the job, if you like being outdoors, I mean, my job, it's outdoors, but this can go into manufacturing, this can go into food processing. There's all different types of field safety support. And so you can hear, they're also called safety coordinators, safety specialists. They're all kind of different names, but you would hear, they were all kind of filtering the same methods. And so for being a safety coordinator, doing those field visits, a lot of this is just observation. You're observing the frontline workers doing their work, and there's general guidelines that you have. Are they wearing the proper safety equipment while they're doing their job? Safety glasses, are they on top of their head? Are they not even there? Are they wearing hearing protection? And so with you there, you're able to say, oh, hey, Sarah, you didn't have your safety glasses. Why don't I give you a pair? Can you please wear them? And then if this comes a problem where Sarah is never wearing her safety glasses, you're able to coach her and then ultimately leave it to management to help coach them so that they're safe on the workplace while you're there and then when you're not. Karen, you have a question.
Yes. So what are some of the different sites when you talk about going out to sites? So maybe students might like to know the different what that means. Sorry.
So at PGE, because we have a little less than 3,000 employees, and we're all across the state. So we have our line centers, and so that's where I'm currently at. Our line center houses typically an administrative building. And then in the yard is just this huge piece of campus where it holds the huge line trucks and bucket trucks that you'd see fixing any transmission distribution problems like on the side of the road, when they're restoring power. All that's housed here. We have a warehouse, we call them our storerooms, that holds all our equipment, and that yard holds all the equipment as well. So that can include our wires, that can include our poles, any other special equipment. We have a location in Gresham, and so that houses snow equipment because they have to go on Mount Hood into Timberline. And so they have like bobcats and stuff, so that way they can work through their elements. So a little bit different equipment depending on the location, but that's typically in the line centers. You'll see, and also you'll see a fleet. So garages, so mechanics, and they service all our equipment. So we do a lot of self-service at PGE. We don't have to rely on contractors for a lot of that stuff. So we need the space for that. Then we have administrative buildings. There's several in the metro area and in Portland, and those hold our system control center. So that's what controls the whole grid. And so that I cannot talk intelligently about, so I'm not going to try. But they're our home base. Without them, we can't operate. And so they can see all the outages, all working, everything that's energized, any emergencies, and they're talking with our crews over phone and radio 24/7. That is a 24/7 staffed position. The team is getting larger because our service territory is getting larger. That building is completely administrative. So anyone that works on a computer, that's there. It's a normal office building. And then we have our generation plants. And so there's two different types three types that we have actually. We have thermal, hydro, and wind. And so two of our locations have the big wind turbines. That one is in Washington. The other one is past the Dalles. So that's two of our locations. And then we have hydro plants. And so several dams all across the state, particularly in the Cascades. And then we have our thermal plants, which is in Clatskanie, and we have two locations, or technically three locations there. We used to do nuclear, Trojan Nuclear. We still own the property. We decommissioned there, but we still, because of regulation and Homeland Security, we can't just leave the property. We have to secure it because it's of national interest. So that's part of our property as well. So all of those very different people working at those locations, not only their jobs, but their backgrounds and the culture that they grew up in. In the metro area, you can see more folks that are from all across the country. And as you go out more towards Clatskanie and Pendleton, so forth, most of those people have lived there their entire lives, and their parents worked at that plant and their parents worked there. And it's definitely a very family-centric culture. So it just kind of depends where you're at, that not only the people you're working with and the equipment, but their backgrounds as well. So those are the main types that we have here at PGE. And then there's different safety elements in all of those. So if you look at those plants, they're 2 hours away from the mainland here in the metro. So they have to be self-sufficient. So they have their own garage, they have their own storeroom, they have their own management, and it's separate from what we have over here. Versus the metro area, we can be very cross-functional. If I don't have a piece of equipment or personnel here at Sunset, I can call Beaverton or Salem or Gresham and get the right people here. So it kind of changes the dynamics of being prepared as well as safety. Your ownership and safety can be vastly different. In my job, I'm solo most of the time. I am driving in my truck by myself, going to place to meet crews or individuals. And if you're at a plant, you're surrounded by 6 or 7 people at a time. So it depends on what safety looks like for you. For me, the biggest and dangerous thing I do every day is drive. Driving is extremely dangerous, not only for yourself, but those around you. And it is, we giggle a little bit, but we put millions of miles on the road every year at PGE. We do a lot of driving. So it's not only myself, but even our frontline workers. And so that's a point of safety that we focus on too. So there's all different elements, from office safety to frontline to even driving. So I wanted to go back a little bit and just talk about like where I started. So I mentioned that I graduated from Glencoe, and my background there, just to give you the sense of the type of person I was back then. I was really into science. I won a couple science fairs. I did the regional state science fair that Intel put on at the time. It was the Science Expo. Went to state. It's something I really enjoyed. And engineering. I did all the engineering classes. I was literally the only girl in those classes, and that was fine. I really enjoyed it. I had a good time. I received several awards for those things, and was heavily involved with sports. I played soccer, basketball, softball, and volleyball in my time at Glencoe. And I'm a true believer, like, you got to be doing something, whether it's volunteering or sports, or if you are so talented to dance, sing, or do any of those type of arts, you need to be involved with something. So I really encourage you, if you aren't doing something like that, to get involved with something, even if you're not going to be the all-star. I think that's important for your self-development, as well as don't give up. If I got cut from a team, I didn't make it later on in high school, I found another team. Keep busy. That's really going to develop you as a person. My career pathway focus, as I said, was engineering and law. At the time at Glencoe, we called it SEAL. And my dream job was to be a district attorney, so a lawyer. And I was set on that. And to this day, I'm still set on that. But I had a plan. I was going to go to school to get my bachelor's degree at Portland State. I was going to go to law school, and I was going to be a district attorney at Washington County. Like, that was my plan, and was very focused on that. And I worked. And so I was an umpire. I umpired baseball for several years. Boys baseball, I actually probably umpired some of you if you played baseball here in Hillsborough. And I was the only female umpire for a long time. My best job, and I've had several, even though I've been at PGE, there's different roles I play here. The best job I've ever had, I still use it to this day for any interview questions, is being an umpire. There's so many things you will learn about life as an umpire. And the best that translates to my job is that when someone is running to first base and there's a close call, no matter if you call safe or out, and it is obvious if it's safe or out, half the crowd is not going to like what you say, and the other half is going to love it. And so what do? You make the best call to your knowledge, and you do the best to be right. And that I take in my work every day. I know people aren't going to like when I tell them they can't do something because it's unsafe. But I know if I continue to do the right thing, eventually, they'll see that I'm consistent, that there's a reason why I'm doing that. And that to me, all those life lessons have been very helpful in being my career. If you did the math, I'll be 27 actually next week. So still very young in my career. So I started out at PGE 2 weeks after I graduated high school. And I only had that umpire experience, and it was supposed to be a 3-month internship at PGE, and they placed me in this HR position. I did the job, really liked it, and I was going to Portland State to do my Bachelor's of Arts in Human Resources, and that was the plan. And this gentleman, who was a manager, asked me what my plan was, and I told him, as I just said to you, and he's like, "Oh, so like, when's your last day?" I'm like, "Oh, it's next week. I'm going to college. I'm so excited." I became a first generation college student as well as graduate, and then my brother followed. So I mean, college was not something anyone in my family has ever even went to, let alone graduate from. So that was a very exciting point in my time. And this man goes, "Well, you should talk to your boss about staying on and working while you go to school." And I never even thought that was an option. When they tell you 3 months, it's 3 months. That was the plan. And so at 18 years old, I go into my boss's office, who I had a good relationship with, but I'm still terrified to ask, like, "Oh, well, Jordan said I should ask, like, to stay on while I work at school. Like, what do you think?" And she's like, "I think that is a great idea. Let's see what we can do." So if Jordan never told me to ask, the answer, it was already no, right? We didn't know about if we already knew that my position was ending. And so nothing would have changed, but asking, it got extended. And so it's been 9 years since that conversation, and I've been at PGE that entire time. I went through Portland State. I graduated early. I even ended up double majoring at Portland State in HR and management and leadership. And then I'm actually now doing my master's at Oregon State, doing that, the hybrid version, as well as working full time. And so because of that one conversation Jordan had with me of asking, it changed my whole outcome in life. How did I get my internship at PGE? I was actually the 2014 Rose Festival Princess. I was extremely fortunate to get that scholarship. You might have been watching the news last couple of weeks, and we're currently announcing our scholarship winners, and that changed my life. It was a great opportunity to network with people, get connections with folks all through the industry, all with adults, and really leverage them. And as I said earlier, LinkedIn. I used LinkedIn all the time. If I met you, even if it was for 2 minutes or less, I went and found you on the computer. "Oh, you said you worked at Providence. Your name was Susan. Oh, there you are. That's the picture of you." Add. And then they start seeing the things that you post, and make sure it's professional. Anything that's with volunteer work, anything that's with school work, even, I mean, at your guys' age, sports, I am the captain of the softball team. You know, I'm very excited to say that I've been on honor roll. Anything that you can connect that's positive, that can translate into work or school or volunteering, that is all acceptable to post. And I would encourage you. Oh, go ahead.
That's how we connected, was through LinkedIn. I read an article and you appeared in it, and that made me curious because it had mentioned something of, I was curious about what a safety specialist was, and then that led me down the rabbit hole, and I went to your page and continued to learn more about you, and we connected through, I messaged you. So yes, I love it.
It's great. LinkedIn's a great tool if you know how to use it. So my personal advice is in my experience, pictures get way more notification than just doing a post. So if something happened, whether it's, you know, a picture of you being on honor roll, or a news clipping of you with a sport or something like that, post that picture, give it a little description, and that will get a lot of notoriety. And that's building your brand. It's all about your brand. If you do add me on LinkedIn, you'll see I'll post every couple of weeks of something that I'm doing, particularly with volunteer work. I actually talk way more about my volunteer work than I do about the work I do at PGE, partially because a lot of the work I do at PGE is negative. Like, someone got hurt. There's, you know, it's not as exciting as, look at this, we changed someone's life. This is my involvement that I choose to do. And so there's all opportunities that you can post about. And it's great for remembering folks from your past, especially like me, right? I grew up in this area. I'm staying in this area, and I don't really plan on going anywhere for the time being. All those people I've connected with in the last 10, 15 years that I had on LinkedIn, you know, I'm interested in a job at Hillsborough School District. Who can I talk to? Oh, Brooke Nova. You know, I can reach out to her. Hey, Brooke, do you remember me? I'm this person. We met, you know, back in 2008. I'm very interested in that job. Can you talk to me more about it? All of those connections can help. It's very based on who you know to help open that door and get you in the seat, and then the rest is on you. So I really encourage you to be, even if you're very uncomfortable with networking and talking with people, really force yourself to break through that uncomfortableness and really try to make those connections. It's going to pay out your entire career. What else can I tell you about my job here at PGE? Been here for 9 years. And when I started that internship, it was only in health services, which was a part of safety. And I learned about the medical cards that people have, the Department of Transportation cards they need to have, their CDLs. We do random drug testing. All those things that that are part of health and safety at a company, I learned. And the best thing that I had is I had people who were invested in me. They wanted me to succeed. And so I latched onto them. I ask till this day, I ask a lot of questions. I want to learn. I want to be the person when you ask me a question. So if you ask me a question, I don't know the answer, I have all these great people behind me that I can go talk to. They can teach me the answer, and now I know it. And now I can be the person next time to relay that. And so when you're able to have a strong foundation of people that are supporting you, you're really able to leverage that for yourself, and then you're learning. So if you can, it doesn't have to be a formal one, but look for mentors in your life, both at your job and outside your job. Typically, they're going to be 20 or 30 years older than you. And so it's really enticing to stick around with all the other interns in your group or the people around your similar age, because there's a lot of connection, but you're all kind of in the same boat. You don't have too much experience to offer each other. Find other people who have been there, done that, who can offer you advice in situations where you go, I have no idea what to do, or I'm uncomfortable. You know, one of my first questions at my job was like, do I have to ask to use the restroom, or like, can we just go? Because that's as a high school student, right? You got to ask the teacher, you get permission, you have 5 minutes to get back, or else, you know, there's consequences. And they're like, no, Marla, just go when you need to and come back when you're done. I'm like, oh, okay. But that was an embarrassing question to ask. But because I had a strong foundation, I felt a connection to the person that they set me up with, I was able to ask that. And you'll find those people all throughout your life. I have so many mentors. Many of them are at PGE, many of them are not. Many of them are in their 50s and 60s, and some of them are in their 30s and 40s. So it all depends. We all offer different backgrounds and experiences and opportunities, but having someone that you feel like you can trust and go to with those questions is super important. So really, and there's a mentor for different things. I have a mentor that I solely go to for when I'm negotiating a job offer. I'm like, that is her bread and butter. She is excellent with saying, well, you should offer, or you should ask for them to add a couple of days of PTO. I can ask that they add more vacation time. She goes, yes, ask. What's the harm? And because she told me that, I got an extra week of vacation time. So there's things that knowing people's specialties of what they're good at is going to be helpful. You know, I am surrounded by linemen in the other room right now. So all electricians, right? Those be like, Marla, we're not electricians, but to make it simplified, right? They work with electricity. If I have a question about that, I'm gonna go to that room and say, hey, I don't understand this. Can you teach me? And there'll be always someone who's passionate about their job, who's excited to tell you about their job, and will take the time to teach you if you're willing to learn. You got to come in. We don't know everything. So like I said, I have my high school degree, I have my bachelor's degree, and I'm about to have my master's degree. I'm not an expert in that. And so if I come in and say, I know it all, they're never going to want to talk to me again. And so coming in saying, would you teach me? I want to understand better. They're more than happy to explain your job. But they also know that when they have a safety question or what to do when someone gets hurt or someone's taken to the ER, they're able to come to me and they trust me for that information. So we all have our expertise. And when you have that connection going back and forth, it's at the start, you're probably going to be asking a lot more help. But as you grow into your career, then they're going to be able to trust you and ask you for your information. What is the most outlandish safety violation you've dealt with? Well, fortunately, we have not been cited for anything. The most unique concern I've dealt with was during COVID. So it was a regulation that you had to wear a face covering when you were in the public. But we were in the public, but we were up in the air by ourselves. Now, do we need to wear a face mask or not? And so that was a very interesting thing. And then we had family members concerned about the appropriate safety actions we were taking around COVID. The company had very specific COVID rules that we followed. We followed what the state of Oregon, OSHA, OHA, and other entities said we had to do. But with any safety rule, when you say this is a regulation, for the most part, everyone goes, okay, it's a rule, like we got to follow it. With COVID, that's different. That it became so personal and very politicized that it didn't really matter what the rule said. It was dependent on how the person felt. Someone could be very fearful of COVID and they're dealing with someone who's not fearful at all and thinks it's, you know, we're wasting our time. And the other person is saying we're not doing enough. How, as a safety person, am I supposed to make both those people feel validated? Well, I go back to that rule and I go, the rule is when you're in this space, you have to wear a face covering. Well, I disagree with that. I understand you disagree with that, but that's the rule and we have to enforce it. And it's very difficult. So that one I think would be like the most craziest one. Unfortunately, on the sad side, in the past couple of years, unfortunately, we've had 2 fatalities with dealing with the member of public. Fortunately, I did not have to be the person who had to investigate those. That was a different person at the time. But that is very emotional for everyone involved, not only the person who had the incident, but everyone who has to respond, their crew members who were there, the safety and managers who are now getting involved. You're also now having increased presence from law enforcement, fire services, EMS. The crowd just gets really busy. It's very emotional. And when there's any incidents, especially members public, a lawsuit eventually follows. So from my side of the house, documentation. Who took what call, what was said, what time that call happened, who showed up, who was there, did they get a drug test, who took them to the drug test, all these different things you have to make sure that before the lawsuit will come a year or 2 later. Before all that happens is you have your documentation order and you're saving it. Because we're a large company, we have, the financial backing to have our safety management system online. So everything you throw in the system, boom, you put in the person who had the incident, it pulls all the documentation that you added. If you're in a smaller business, you might not have that. It might be just saving it to your desktop. So being organized in those manners is going to be helpful for you. And you won't, if you do good documentation at the time of any incident, doesn't have to be a fatality, any incident, some vehicle, member of public rear-ended you. Having all that documentation, clear descriptions of what happened, time and date, when someone asks you, because they will, when someone asks you in 6 months, a year, 2 years, what happened, you could just pull your notes and say, oh, I remember this, now reading through, here you go. So thinking of your future self currently and how you want to make your life easier in the future, doing that in your job is going to be very beneficial. Are there a lot of opportunities for growth in this position? I'm going to say yes, and I am a product of that. So I started out as an intern in health services. And because I would take any opportunity, even if it's a bad opportunity and it is not luxurious, if someone asks you if you can do something, or if no one is volunteering to do that task, volunteer for it, even if it's extra work for you. I want you to take the time and say, I'll do it. I'm interested. I can help, whatever capacity you have, because when they see that you are proactive, I want to keep her around. I want to keep him around. And so when you're a go-getter like that, that's going to open many doors. And in my case, that's what it was. So hopefully I don't get kicked out when I share my screen, but I'm very transparent with my pay. So I feel it's, I grew up, all my family members are union members, so their pay is set by their contract. And so everyone was making the same amount based on the years of experience they had. So hopefully you can see my screen. So when I started out in 2014, that's a nice picture of me. See, I told you I was a science nerd and I had a Rose Festival and umpiring. So there's some proof in my schooling at PSU. So Karen, can you see the hourly wages?
Yes, I can.
Excellent. Okay. So in 2014, when I first started, I was making $11.26. So like $2 more than minimum wage, which I mean, at 18 years old and only having a high school degree, yeah, not bad. But annually, that's $23,000. So the next year I was non-exempt. So non-exempt is hourly. My opinion is if you can stay hourly or non-exempt for your entire life, you should do so because you are paid for every second you work. If when you switch over to exempt, you just get a base rate, whether you work 10 hours or 50 hours, it is the same rate. So this is where overtime work, when you work over 40 hours, is really nice when you're non-exempt. So when I was making $11.26, I was doing a different hour. Or I started off doing full-time and then I went to school. And so I actually dropped down to being a part-time student. So part-time employee because I became a full-time student. And so whenever I didn't have school and all Fridays, I worked at PGE. My boss was wonderful in helping me do that. And as my schedule changed, if I had no classes on Wednesdays, Wednesday would be added. Or if I could work at 12 o'clock to 5 o'clock, that would be added. I had great support. So in 2014, graduated from high school. And 2015, I got merit. So that's a little increase. Basically, you'll get about a 3% raise every year if you have a good you're doing good in your job or better with your performance appraisal. So then it went to $11.93. Whoo, making some big money. So that was, a couple $100 more than what I was making. I guess $1,000 more than I was making the previous year. I was in school, so I was still umpiring. I went to school and I actually became an intern at the Portland Rose Festival Foundation that year. So I had 3 jobs. I was working, I think I ended up working about an average 30 hours at the Rose Festival. I did about 8 hours every Saturday and Sunday. So that's another 16 umpiring. So those were extra places I was earning some money because I paid for my school. I got scholarships and then the rest was for me to pay. And I never took out a loan. I was debt free and having a job early on and doing my umpiring in high school and then continuing to do the internships and umpiring helped me. I paid my school off as it came in. PSU had a great thing where it would take your term and divide it by the 3 months of the term and whatever your total was. So it was $1,000 a term. And so because I worked all summer and then I continued to umpire and continue to work at PGE, and I had my scholarships, I was able to make that, like, I think it was ended up being 1,000 or so with scholarships every month. That was doable. And I continued to do that through my whole entire college career. So in 2016, I got a big bump, $13. That was exciting. And then 2017, I got $14. I ended up graduating early from school in March of 2018. But when 2017, when that pay raise happened, I'm like, I have like 6 months of school left. Like $14 is nothing, because remember, minimum wage is still increasing. And at this time, we were on the push in Oregon to meet $15 an hour in the metro. So all the minimum wage in the metro area really started to increase. So I was only about $1 more every time that increase happened from minimum wage. So in 2018, when I got that degree, you could see that huge pay bump that I received just because I finished school. And so I was still non-exempt, graduated from college. And then this is where in my career, I really shifted from the entry-level internship work into a more professional full-time safety role. And so this was, we called it, there's levels. I think it was like a specialist 1. And then we changed it to associate safety specialist. And so there's different ranks that we go through. Companies all have different titles. You'll see, like, I have a senior, someone else may be a junior at a different company. They might just be a safety specialist. There's all different numberings to it. But as we can see, we continue on after I graduated college, my increases are much more than 60 cents now. We're starting to see a big improvement in my pay. In 2022 is when I started my master's program. And we see that huge jump right there of just starting my master's program, of going from $77,000 a year to $100,000. And then when we had merit this year in February, I got an additional $7,000 for continuing my master's. So on that rate, and on top of, I'm still doing good work, right? I have been what we call it here, we call it exceedings. I've been getting an exceedings rating for the work I'm doing. So it's not just because I have the different degrees in my background, it's also the output I'm putting with, but the education that's backing up my experiences and the results is helping push me forward. And so right now I'm making $107,000, but I'm exempt. And so if I work more than 40 hours a week, all that extra hours that I'm working are essentially for free. So that's why I really make sure, for me, like, when I'm at work, I am dialed in. I'm focused on completing what I'm doing. I'm trying not to take personal calls, trying to stay off social media, and really focusing. So that way, I'm making that $51 an hour. Because when you start stretching it, what you're making an hour starts getting smaller and smaller. And so to me, that's how I function. And then on the other side, I always think about, like, saving. I want to buy a house. That's one of my goals. I want to live a comfortable life, be able to travel when I want. And so making this amount isn't going to be helpful if I'm not saving as well. So I don't think that we talk too much about that in my generation and your generation. I'm putting money away for my 401k. I'm putting money away for my savings. I have to work to pay bills, but I also want to work so I have a comfortable life. So I just wanted to share that because I think that's an important aspect of working too. There's so much more outside of work that we want to accomplish. So being able to enjoy that at work and also at home is important to me. So I just wanted to share that. So you can see different ways. So right now, I am a senior safety specialist. There's a professional position that's non-management that's above me, and they cap out at about 125,000 at PGE. That's really the going rate for them. So that would be the next level if I continued into my professional career. Now, at this point, I can really become a subject matter expert and go into that principal safety specialist, or I can go into management. Being safety, which is something for my style and wanting to be a leader and wanting to lead people and make them better than where they are. That to me is very interesting. So that person can start anywhere from 125 to, I believe, 160 is kind of the range that you can fall in. And then there's more management positions beyond that. That position really is for the manager for the hands-on folks like me. And then there's some levels above them for safety that would be more on strategy, focus on the company-wide, where we want to go in the next 3 years. And so there's different elements to each of those. So those are some of the, so the question is, out of high school, what would we as fresh graduate students make? So if you only have your high school degree, if you are starting at PGE, I would say you're probably going to make $17 to $18 an hour. It'll be about probably $2 more than minimum wage. And that it depends where you're going, right? So PGE is for the most part focused in the metro area. If you're going to do one of our locations that are in like Clatskanie or in the Bend or Madras area, that might be less because of cost of living and the minimum wage requirement there. So that's something to consider. Do I need a college degree to be successful in my job? No. Does it help? Absolutely. The difference on my team, we have different folks. So our team is for our field folks, those that are in the field, majority of them are men. And of those men, they have the traditional trades background. They were a lineman, they were a generation technician, they worked in construction, they have the hands-on experience of doing the work. Those who don't, they have the educational background. So it's a nice balance because you have someone that knows how to do the work that's on the safety team, but you also have someone that knows how to stay in compliance and help you through on the safety side. So there's mixed bags. You don't have to necessarily have a safety background to be in safety, but that educational background, whether it's at trades or through a formal education, is very beneficial. If I was to do something different, I would have done more, knowing at the time I was going to be a district attorney. And so for me, my plan was I'm going to do my bachelor's in business, because business, if law school didn't work out, I didn't want to go. I hated it, whatever. Every single business can take a business degree. It is a very universal one. So that was my plan. HR, which was what I majored in management and leadership when I doubled. HR is in every company. And so that to me was good job security, that I wouldn't have to find 1 or 2 companies that offered that. And so that was my original plan. And law school accepts any sort of background. You can do an arts degree, you can do, the pre-law route, you can do med, you can do business, you can do whatever before then. There's no special requirements. And so when I applied for law school, I got waitlisted in the 3 law schools that were in Oregon, but I got accepted in other schools across the country. And when I was in high school, I did a job internship through the chamber, with Judge Eric Butterfield in Washington County. And he allowed me to meet with anyone possible, including judges, district attorneys, and defense attorneys. And the best advice I got from that is go to school where you want to live 5 years after you're done, because all your connections are going to be in that area. And I'll tell you, if I didn't become a Rose Festival princess and didn't get this connection at PGE, Portland State is so well connected with the Portland metro area. I would have been just as fine if I would have went that route and didn't have that PGE internship, because of the connections that school had with their community. So if you're going to go away for school, if you're going to go, even if you're going to, U of O or OSU, it's still in the state. Plan to be around Corvallis and Eugene, because that's where all your connections are going to be. I had an excellent student also graduated from the Hillsborough School District. Valedictorian, went to school in California and came back for summer jobs, applying for summer jobs in Portland. And the company said, like, you sound great and we think you're amazing, but we don't know anything about the school program that you're in. So we're actually going to go with the Portland State students. They ended up transferring to Portland State and ended up getting the job the following year. But that's something to consider too when you're thinking about if you are going to go to college, whether that's a community college or a 4-year, where do you want to live in the next 4 years, and maybe consider that as part of your plan when you're going through school. So going back to my route, you know, I didn't want to go live in New York. That's where my family is, but I didn't want to live there for 3 years of law school plus 5 years afterwards. I really wanted to stay in the area. So I decided to stay here and continue working at PGE. And one of my mentors goes like, Marla, like, if you want to get ahead,
Oh no. We lost her again.
We were on a good roll. She'll be right back.
we were doing so good for so long. So if you really want to do well, you know, you got your 9 years of experience, you need that safety connection. So either you can go back to school and you know, get associates in environmental and safety and health, or do another, you know, back core. Why don't you do a master's in public health? And I'm like looking at him like cross-eyed, like public health, that's not safety. And he ended up explaining to me how actually the safety and health initiatives are part of public health, and showed me the several different schools in the Portland, the Pacific Northwest area, and other options if I wanted to go to other schools that offered online. I had no plan of doing my master's in public health. I had no plan. Like the plan was law school eventually, and it's still the plan now that I'll eventually go back and do that. But because that person recognized that I wanted more in life, that I wasn't just happy being, you know, middle grade safety specialist, I want more in life. He gave me, you know, he sat down and told me, like, if you want to be that manager, maybe not today, maybe not in the next year, but if you want that position, you're going to have more in your background, and getting that piece of education is going to be really beneficial. And so when you look at my team, there's only 2 people with master's degrees, and they're in very specialized positions. Everyone else either have trade experience, they have an associate's, or they have 20 plus years of experience that you just can't challenge. There's only 2 other people that have a bachelor's degree on my team. So how am I supposed to compete with that person that has 20 years of experience? Well, I got 9, and then I'm adding on to my education. That starts adding up, and that's enticing too. There's other routes to go with the education piece as well. You don't need to go through formal school. There's certificates as well. You could be a certified safety professional. You can do ad hoc classes at University of Washington. There's all different other outside of formal, you know, bachelor's and master's program. You can do these certificates and keep up on that continuous learning. So regardless if you become a safety specialist or a cop or whatever you want to be in your life, keep doing the continuous education. Once you can keep your certifications activated, and you don't have to redo the whole test. You just can take the classes and keep the credits rolling. But also you're going to learn more information, and sometimes it's going to be a repeat. I just attended a conference for continuing education. I'm like, oh man, I knew all that, but it was a refresher. It helped bring some things that I know from the heart back to the front, and thinking about how can I put that back into work. I think we're closing in on time. I wanted to give an opportunity for questions. I know I could chat forever. Is there anything in particular that someone would want to know about myself or this job, or anything? I'll answer any question.
Well, I put into the chat, how do you say updated with the current regulations and laws and safety requirements? Does PGE provide those trainings for you and the continuing education? What's that look like? Because things are always changing.
Yeah, so the nice thing about, for the most part, about laws is they're so slow. They don't just happen. Particularly with OSHA, things take literally years to get involved. So just signing up to Oregon OSHA's news notification, anytime they have a hearing, which is when they ask businesses and organizations and members of public to comment on possible legislation that they're working on, then you can start seeing the updates, and you can read the minutes. A trick that I would offer, and I would even offer this for resumes, is go to credible schools, Oregon State, Portland State, you know, Harvard, whatever. There's so many accessible documents from their public site. You don't have to be a student from. You can see what associations that they are part of. Are they part of a particular chapter? Are they part of an alliance? Are they part of a program that you're interested in? And you can see those because oftentimes they're bragging. You know, we have a connection with the Association of Safety Professionals. And then you're like, oh, what's the Association of Safety Professionals? And you click on that and it's a public website and you can enroll as a member. Being students, often it's free or like $10 or $15 a year to buy into. So that's one way I've cheated around that is, you know, go and find the information yourself. A lot of the times institutions like schools will show you the organizations they're involved with because they're bragging about those connections. That's one way. The second way I said is enlisting into OSHA. And the third is asking people. PGE is not the only place that has safety professionals. So reaching out to other safety professionals, organizations of like, you know, what information are you following? What conferences are you going to? Sometimes there's a particular person who's a keynote speaker that folks are very interested in. You know, who's that person? What are they talking about? So in my job and really any job, you got to be proactive and a self-starter, and having that mindset of always finding information and wanting to get better is going to put you ahead compared to others.
Nice. And where do you see, I know you said like you're still considering that law career. Is there, while you're continuing in your education, is there something that you're working towards advancing in within PGE?
I think for two reasons I'm getting my degree. One, I personally believe that for my generation and the next, that the bachelor's degree is going to become the new minimum requirement when applying for jobs. Right now, you'll see a kind of a mix of high school degree plus experience or bachelor's degree plus experience. So what happens when everyone has a bachelor's degree? What's the next step? A master's degree. So I'm trying to get ahead of that curve. So that's one of the reasons why I'm doing it. So that way in 10, 15 years, when that changes, I don't have to rush to a school. I already have that and I can look for the next step. The second reason I'm doing it is I am seriously considering management positions at PGE and other places. And then the third reason is I want to know more. I want to, like I said, I always want to be the person that has the answer, and I don't know everything. So finding the people who have the experience in my network, as well as that educational background, is really going to help me. And also, like, who knows if I'm going to stay at PGE for the rest of my life. That degree or those degrees at another company can be very valuable. And I don't have to go into safety because I have my MPH. I don't have to go in HR because I have an HR degree. Just having that degree is going to check that box. That way you can get in front of an interview panel and hopefully do your best to get that job. So just because you go in a specific major or degree doesn't mean you have to stay in that for the rest of your life. You don't even have to go into it. I would just really encourage while you're in college, try to find something you like, try to find something that's transferable to most jobs if you don't have a specific job like I did with my business degree, right? And then don't let people discourage you if you're thinking of doing master's or a different route. Oh, it's an extra 2 years of school or 4 years. So what? I wish I would have done my master's degree 2 years ago. I would have been done at 27 instead of going to be done at 28, right? So it's different routes from people, and I really encourage you to follow what you want to do, but also think of how your choice is going to impact your life. If you want to travel like I do, how's that job going to support those goals? Are they going to help you get that house? Is that going to help you travel, etc.? I think there's a lot of elements outside that, and I think with that continuing education, it gives me more options and more financial support to ask for more money, more benefits, more time off, so that way I can be happy in my personal life.
So as we wrap up, what would you say is the favorite thing you love about your job?
Every day is different. Yesterday I was working at home. Today I was in the field talking to our IOC, our location at the IOC. I was at a safety committee earlier this week. And tomorrow I'm going to be volunteering on behalf of the company. So, and that is really what my week looks like. It is a different day every time. I could not come in to work and do the same thing over and over and over again. Like it just would not be for me. And so that's what I like, is there's so many options that I can go with. And if there's things that I'm really good at or really passionate about, I'm able to hone in on that and make that more consistent, but also have variety as well. So that's the best thing about my job. There's so much variety. It's a lot of fun, but also like it's a serious job. People do get hurt. And there is some comfort in being the person that they go to for help when that happens. And I really enjoy helping folks, and that's a big piece of my job.
Well, thank you. This was very interesting and